I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his servant and his messenger. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa Allah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh.
I wake up sweating on the cold metal bed of my tent, my blanket wet, my breathing fast. In my dream I was in Kunar again. Dusty wind, gunfire, and that boy. He was waving a white flag, but I had declared him a terrorist and killed him. Even when I'm awake, his eyes haunt me. Next to me is the Quran I took out of my military bag. For the first time, I dare to open its pages. Maybe this book will help me overcome my guilt.
The cold morning air swept through the tents as I remained lost in the night's darkness. The image from the Kunar Valley replayed in my mind like a haunting film. The child holding the white flag. My God, how innocent his eyes were. But I had killed him. A 12-year-old boy. My finger was on the trigger, and fear gripped my heart. Terrorist, I had shouted then. Now, that word weighed heavily on my shoulders. Inside the military tent, sitting on the metal-framed army cot, I turned the pages of the Quran. This book had come from the pocket of that child in Afghanistan. Blood-stained, buried in dust. This holy book, found on the battlefield, had come with me, hidden at the bottom of my suitcase. Back then, it was just a war trophy, a souvenir, perhaps the tangible evidence of my guilt. Now, everything was different. For the first time, I dared to open its pages at night. Though the Arabic script was foreign to me, I could read the English translation. Each word resonated differently within my soul, especially one verse. Whoever kills an innocent soul, it is as if he has killed all of humanity. At that moment, the face of the child from Kunar appeared before my eyes, the white flag. It was a sign of surrender, but I hadn't seen it. Maybe I didn't want to see it, because it was easier to see the enemy, to kill. The tent door suddenly opened, and Major Harris's heavy footsteps echoed in my ears. His face bore the familiar stern expression, discipline, command, obedience. When his eyes fell on my desk, he immediately noticed the Quran. The golden Arabic script on its cover gleamed in the dim light of the tent. Sergeant Rosenberg, what are these Arabic books? His voice was like chalk scraping on a blackboard. As he threw the book onto the table, I watched, and inside me, that child died again. He had a white flag in his hand. I shot. Why? Because that's how I was trained. Because they taught me to see the enemy. Because I lived in a world divided into them and us. Terrorist! I had shouted then. Now, in the cold walls of the military prison, I whisper, do not kill anyone unjustly. Surah Al-Isra 33. This verse cut deeper into my soul than my father's Auschwitz number B7834, the 6-digit number, the silent scream of identity carved into his skin. The traces of genocide, trauma, passed down through generations. But this verse was different. It confronted me with my conscience. The hatred in Harris's eyes was familiar, because I had looked at that child with the same hatred as an enemy, a threat, a target to be eliminated. But now I understood that that child was also someone's son, someone's flesh and blood, hope and dream. This book is changing you, Rosenberg, Harris said, his voice thick with disgust. We're soldiers, not philosophers. It's not our job to think. It's to follow orders. Yes, sir, I replied, but the storm inside me never subsided. When I lowered my eyes, I saw the sand on the tent floor, Afghan sand. Each grain a memory, each particle a pain. The place where that child fell was sandy like this. His blood had seeped into these sands. In the late hours of the night, when everyone was asleep, I continued reading the Quran under the light of my flashlight. Each page affected me more deeply. The connections between Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, the similarities between the prophets, the emphasis on mercy and justice. All of these were messages of peace, contrary to what I had been taught. Towards dawn, for the first time in my life, I wondered about one of the Muslim prayer times, the Fajr prayer. My watch showed 5, 30. Were millions of people around the world awake at that moment, praying to the same God? With this thought, I fell asleep. In my dream, I saw that child again. But this time, he wasn't angry. He was just sad. Why? He asked. I couldn't answer. The neighborhood where I grew up, in Brooklyn, hadn't changed at all. The same narrow streets, the same Jewish shops, the same Hebrew signs. Crown Heights, the heart of the Orthodox Jewish community, was beating here. Every corner was adorned with memories filled with my past. My father's house was the mold that raised me, carrying the weight of the past in every corner. The photographs hanging on the walls, my grandfather, Moses' story of salvation from the Nazi concentration camp, my father David's years of military service in Israel, my graduation ceremony, my military photographs. All of them were links in a chain. Jewish identity, love for Israel, war against enemies. A legacy passed down through generations. But I was changing. As I lit the Hanukkah candles, my father watched me. The festival of lights lasting 8 days, the miracle of the Hasmoneans. But my miracle was coming from a different place now. In the light of the candles, I remembered the verses I learned from the Quran. Allah is the light of the heavens and the earth, Surah An-Nur 35. Light, the same symbolism in Judaism and Islam. The light that conquers darkness. You've changed, Yakub, my father said, his eyes shining in the light of the candles. But for the worse. Those books are poisoning you. I hadn't told him about the Quran, but he must have guessed. Fathers are the first to notice their sons' changes. Which books, father? Save the straw for when the time comes. I was young too. I also had doubts and questions. But in the end, I saw the truth. They want to destroy us. It will always be like that. What if they are human like us? What if they are mother's sons? Father's hopes. My father's fist slammed on the table, making the glass tray with the Hanukkah candles tremble. Are you my son or a traitor? This question resonated deeply in my soul. Being a son. Being a traitor. Where was the thin line between the two? I'm just seeking the truth, father. The truth? My father's eyes were blazing. The truth is that they want to destroy us. They put your grandfather in the ovens. They tried to kill me in Lebanon. Now you. He couldn't raise his voice further. His old heart couldn't bear this pain. My father was right in one way. History was full of oppressions against Jews. But did that give us the right to oppress others? That night, I went to my grandfather's room. In the depths of the old wooden closet, there was the kaftan he kept, even in the ghetto days. The fabric was faded, the edges worn, but it was still a sacred heirloom. Each thread a story, each stitch a pain. When I put on the kaftan and looked in the mirror, I had trouble recognizing myself. Was this Jewish Yakub or something else? I had started growing my beard. People were looking at me strangely on the street, but I couldn't stop the change inside me. I started going to the Brooklyn Mosque early in the morning. My first visit was out of curiosity, to know the enemy. But when I entered, the scene I saw was very different from what I expected. The mosque was a place of peace. People seemed calm and serene. Children were playing, elders were chatting. Just like our synagogue, Imam Abdullah was an old and wise man. There was no hatred in his eyes, only peace. When he saw me, he didn't even look surprised. He smiled as if he was expecting me. Welcome, brother. What is your name? Yakub, I said. I didn't know why I said Yakub then. Why not Jacob? It was as if my tongue had chosen this name on its own. The Arabic pronunciation, the Islamic one. A beautiful name, a prophet's name. The son of Isaac, the grandson of Abraham. Imam Abdullah's voice that morning penetrated my bones. With Moses' staff, you parted the Red Sea. With Muhammad's, peace be upon him, heart, you are parting humanity, Yakub. These words caused a great revolution in my mind. The same God, the same prophets, the same miracles. When I looked at the decorations on the pulpit, I was surprised. There were 6-pointed stars. They looked familiar. The Star of David. Is this Solomon's seal? Imam smiled. The prophets are waters from the same river, my son. Moses, Jesus, Muhammad. They all come from the same source. You can also drink from that river. These words caused an earthquake in my soul. The same river, one source. So, did I believe in the same God as those I considered enemies? As I left the mosque, an old Palestinian woman stopped me. There was pain in her eyes, but no hostility. One of her hands was missing, probably from a bomb fragment. Are you Israeli, son? Yes, auntie. My son was your age. He died in Gaza. There was a break in her voice, but no hatred. An Israeli tank crushed him. He was an ambulance driver. He was saving people. She paused, took a deep breath. But you are different. There is something searching in your eyes. Maybe you will be the bridge. This woman was one of those I considered enemies. But now I only saw a grieving mother. A mother who lost her son, but did not hate. On the contrary, she welcomes me with understanding. I'm very sorry, auntie. Don't be sorry, son. God has a wisdom. Maybe you are part of that wisdom. When I returned home, my father was waiting at the door. From the expression on his face, I understood that he knew where I had been. Where were you? At the mosque. His fist was suspended in the air again. But this time he didn't hit. He just shook his head with such deep sorrow that my heart ached. I'm losing you, Yakub. No, father. I'm finding myself. That night, I dreamed of my grandfather Moses. In the camp, in striped clothes. But he was smiling. Yakub, he said, true peace begins with loving the enemy. The desert patrol was where I first confronted my soul. The Sinai Desert. The sacred land where Moses wandered for 40 years, received revelation, and where the children of Israel gained freedom. With every step, I felt history. These lands were the common heritage of the three great religions. The sands were gleaming golden. The sun was overhead, the heat unbearable, but I was burning with an inner fire. I now carried the Quran in my bag. I was reading it secretly, without letting anyone know. I had started learning to decipher the Arabic letters. Each letter was a mystery, each word a discovery. The other soldiers found me strange now. I no longer joked around or talked about women like before. Instead, I gazed at the desert and thought. The desert was the only place that left a person alone with themselves. Here, lies and masks were useless. That day, a verse from the Quran struck me like lightning. We called out to Moses from the right side of the mount, and we brought him near for a confidential talk. Surah Taha 11. Immediately after reading the verse, when I looked up, I saw it. A single bush was burning on the hilltop, right on the right. Was it a hallucination or reality? I didn't know. But at that moment, I forgot everything. In the desert heat, it could have been a heat stroke, but my heart told me it was something different. I threw off my helmet and started running. My comrades were shouting from behind, Rosenberg, where are you going? But I couldn't hear them. I was mesmerized. As the sands licked my feet, I was whispering, Shema Yisrael, La ilaha illallah. I was saying the Jewish confession of faith and the Islamic testimony of faith in the same breath. Both were telling me the same truth. There is one God, and there is no one worthy of worship but Him. At that moment, there was an explosion. A mine, an old mine. The last thing I saw before losing consciousness was the burning bush going out, as if its task was complete. I woke up in a military hospital in Cairo. My left arm was bandaged, the pain unbearable. The nurse, a young Muslim woman, had mercy in her eyes. When I asked her name, she said, Maryam, Maryam, the mother of Jesus, a name revered by Muslims as well. Someone left this for you, she said, and handed me the Quran. The page that opened was, Indeed, we created man in hardship, Surah Ashar 4. The serum seeping from my burned skin was mixing with the ink on the page. Blood, tears, serum. Altogether, they seemed to be writing a new text on the page. Nurse Miriam was watching me. Are you Muslim? I don't know, I said honestly, but I am on a quest. Quest is a beautiful thing. God does not leave his seeking servant alone. She paused, then added, "You are special. The doctor said your survival is a miracle." That night, from the hospital window, I watched the Nile, the river where Moses was left as a baby, the place where salvation began. Perhaps my salvation also began here. Nurse Miriam was on night shift. She came to my side. "Can I tell you a story?" "Of course." In the Quran, there is the story of Moses. He was also on a quest. He grew up in Pharaoh's palace, but his heart beat with his people. One day, he saw two men fighting, one from his own tribe, the other from the enemy. He defended the one from his tribe, but accidentally, he killed the enemy. Then, he repented. This story was like mine. I had also killed someone I considered an enemy. What happened next? Moses fled. He went to the desert. There, he found himself. And God made him a prophet because he had truly repented. Do I have a chance too? Miriam smiled. God's mercy is greater than his wrath. You can also change. The director of the hospital was a Jewish doctor, Dr. Cohen. He had come from Israel and was working in Egypt. When he came to see me, he was surprised. "Are you Jewish?" "Yes." "Me too. But I came here to care for people's pain, not their religion." Dr. Cohen's story was also similar to mine. He had questioned, he had changed. Now he treated his Muslim patients, his Christian patients, with the same love. "Yakub," he said, "you are at an important turning point. Your left arm is saved but damaged. It might need a prosthesis. But what's more important is healing the damage in your soul." The healing process took 2 months. During this time, I read the Quran from beginning to end. Each verse opened new doors in my soul, especially this verse. Whoever saves a life, it is as if he has saved all of humanity. This was the exact opposite of that dead child. Instead of taking a life, giving life. That should be my new mission. General Harper's office was a place filled with symbols of American military power. Flags hanging on the walls, medals, various war photographs, strategic points marked on the world map. But now I looked at them with different eyes. How many lives had these symbols cost? "Take off that green cloth, Sergeant Rosenberg." I adjusted the turban on my head. Yes, I was now wearing a turban. Not a Sikh turban, but a Muslim one. I hadn't officially become Muslim yet, but the change in my heart was complete. The turban was like a visible sign of this change. Now I am Yakub. I have chosen to be carried instead of carrying weapons, sir. General Harper was someone I had fought alongside for many years. We had stood side by side in Afghanistan, in Iraq. He was the one who promoted me after Kunar, for heroic service, he had said then. Now, there was disappointment, perhaps even hatred in his eyes. "You have become a traitor, Rosenberg. You have joined the enemy's ranks." "No, sir. I have joined the ranks of humanity." There was an open file on his desk, pages full of reports, psychologist interviews, reliability tests, loyalty interrogations. All reached the same conclusion. Sergeant Yakub Rosenberg is no longer reliable. "Look, Yakub," said the general, softening his voice. "You were a good soldier, a good American citizen. This is a temporary crisis. You can be treated. This is not a crisis. It's an awakening, sir." Awakening? Falling for the enemy's propaganda? Who's the enemy, sir? That child I killed? His mother? His father? The general's face turned red. "They are terrorists." Terrorist. We say this word every time we take a life, to ease our conscience. But who is the real terrorist? As I tore off the epaulettes from my jacket, I saw protesters through the window. Freedom for Gaza. It was ironic timing. Just as I was being demoted because of my turban, there was a protest for Gaza outside. My heart raced. Soon I would be there, but in a different capacity. Not as an enemy, but as a helping hand. This country has given you a lot, Rosenberg. Yes, it has. But I also know what it took in return. It took my conscience, my humanity. It made me take that child's life. As I stepped outside, the first punch landed on my neck. Terrorist, traitor, murderer. The people on the street didn't know me, but my turban was enough for them. Being Muslim in America was not easy, especially if you were a former soldier. As I lay bleeding on the ground, I heard that woman scream, "Murderer!" That voice. It was the voice of the woman from Kunar, the mother of that child with the white flag. I would never forget her voice. Now, it was following me. Like a curse. When the police arrived, I got up with difficulty. My uniform was covered in blood, but there was peace in my soul. For the first time, I was at peace with myself. I was no longer hiding. I was Yakub. Just Yakub. While giving my statement at the police station, one of the officers was Muslim. His name was Rashid, of Turkish descent. He welcomed me with kindness. "Brother, this turban will cost you dearly. I know, but I can't hide anymore. Are you Muslim?" In my heart, yes, but I haven't yet testified to the faith. Why? I thought I wasn't ready, but now I think it's time. That night at the police station, with Rashid as my witness, I recited the testimony of faith. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, alone with no partner, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his servant and messenger. As these words left my lips, it felt as if a journey lasting years had come to an end. The Jewish Yakub was dying, the Muslim Yakub was being born.
Entering Gaza was a turning point in my life. As I passed through the Rafah border crossing, my heart was filled with an indescribable excitement. I was no longer coming as an American soldier or an Israeli citizen, but simply as a human being. I had started working as a volunteer for an international aid organization. The first step I took on this land didn't feel foreign to me. It was the same Middle Eastern soil, the same sun, the same wind, but the people living on this land were no longer enemies to me. They were just like me, servants of the same God, children of the same Abraham. The rubble of Al-Shifa Hospital was still being cleared. After the Israeli bombardment, we were setting up a temporary health center for the wounded by collecting the remaining pieces. As I lifted each stone fragment, I felt a sense of guilt inside me. I had also participated in this war of these children. On the enemy side, the first person I met was Dr. Amira. She was a young, intelligent, strong woman. There was fatigue in her eyes, but also hope. When she saw me, she was surprised. "Are you Israeli?" "Yes, but now I am here to help you." Why? This question would be asked to me hundreds of times from that day on, and every time I would give the same answer. Because I am human. Dr. Amira had difficulty trusting me at first. She was right. An Israeli soldier doing aid work in Gaza. Who would believe it? But over time, she saw my sincerity. The first wounded person we pulled from the rubble was an 8-year-old girl named Aisha. Her leg was broken, and there was terror in her eyes. When she saw me, she was scared. She had heard me speaking Hebrew. "Don't be afraid, little one," I said in Arabic. "I won't hurt you." "But you are Israeli," she said in her tiny voice. "Yes, but now I am just Yakub, your friend." The fear in Aisha's eyes slowly turned to curiosity. These children were very different from what our propaganda told us. They were innocent, pure, full of hope. As days passed, people's attitudes towards me began to change. At first suspicion, then curiosity, finally acceptance. Some even started calling me Brother Yakub. The hardest moment was when we buried the bodies we pulled from the rubble of bombed houses. There were children among them, just as innocent as that child from Kunar. I cried as I buried each one. "Why are you crying?" asked an old man working beside me, Abu Muhammad. "Because maybe I killed some of them too, in another place, at another time. But now you are trying to save them. May God accept your repentance." 2 weeks later, something unexpected happened. "Help, medical team." I was shouting in Hebrew because my old habits kicked in during stressful moments. There was a family trapped under a large pile of rubble. Mother, father, and 2 children. Suddenly, tank tracks stopped in front of me. That familiar sound, the engine noise, the creaking of the tracks on the stones. My heart started racing wildly. When the turret opened, I saw a face that was one of the most shocking moments of my life. Major Harris, Traitor Rosenberg. There was still the same old Harris in his voice, full of hatred. But I was no longer that old Yakub. I opened my arms. There were burn scars on my arm in the shape of the Star of David. Was it irony or coincidence? I don't know. But now, this star meant something different to me. Solomon's seal, a symbol of peace. Shema Yisrael, Allahu Akbar. I said the Jewish confession of faith and the Islamic takbir at the same time. Both pointed to the same God, the God of Abraham, Moses, Jesus, Muhammad. The tank barrel trembled. Harris's hand was on the trigger. But then a miracle happened. A tear appeared on Harris's face. Maybe he was also questioning now. Maybe he was also tired of this endless war. Shoot me, Harris, I said. But first, save that family trapped under the rubble. Harris hesitated. There were other voices coming from inside the tank. The other soldiers were also undecided. Commander, this man is a civilian, came a voice. He's a traitor, Harris shouted. But there was not as much certainty in his voice as before. If I am a traitor, then so are you, Harris, because we both did the same things. We killed the same children. These words deeply shook Harris. The silence in the tank lasted for minutes. Finally, the turret closed and the tank slowly moved away. Behind me, I heard Dr. Amira's voice. Why did you do that, Jew? I turned around. There was admiration and surprise in her eyes. Because now, I am human. This answer was actually a summary of my entire journey. I started as Yakub Rosenberg, continued as Sergeant Rosenberg, and now ended as just Yakub. Yakub without nationality, religion, military rank. Just human Yakub.
2 years had passed since I came to Gaza. A lot had changed in that time, both for me and around me. Even Harris had changed. Last month, he wrote me a letter. Yakub, your courage affected me. I am also questioning now. That day, I wanted to get out of the tank, but didn't have the courage. Maybe you are right. Maybe we are all wrong. Maybe peace is possible. This letter was one of the greatest gifts for me. Harris's change showed that my hope was justified. Yusuf, Dr. Amira's son, is now 5 years old. He loves me very much. He calls me Uncle Yakub. I tell him stories. Stories of Moses, Jesus, Muhammad. They are all the same story, actually. The struggle of good against evil. Uncle Yakub, are you really Israeli? Yes, Yusuf. But you are not bad. Because being Israeli is not bad, Yusuf. Being Palestinian is not bad either. What is bad is not loving each other. Today, we are sitting on the beach. Yusuf has a special stone in his hand. He made it himself.